All right, well, I'll call the meeting to order, and everybody's got everything recording, and I'll just immediately turn it over to Leslie for the little bit she's got to read because everything's on Zoom now.
Okay, so normal announcements. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic and pursuant to Executive Order 71 in Tennessee and House Bills 29 and 30 in Virginia, determination has been made by the board that meeting electronically and prohibiting the physical presence of the public at the meeting is necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare for all concerned. So general information, if you've not attended one of these with us before, attendees are muted upon entry to the room. So we'll have a couple of options for public comment. If you want to comment, you can raise your hand. You can put a question in the Q&A box. You can put something in the chat box. So there are multiple options to communicate with us. Again, if you want to be unmuted to speak during the public comment, raise your hand and we can do that. I think that's it for that. And I'll do the roll call for attendance. So, let's see. So Chairman James Phillips.
Here, I affirm.
Jimmy Adkins.
Same.
Blake Ayler.
Present.
Blake, I see your name. Oh.
Present.
Case Milner.
Present.
Troy Ebert.
Here.
Amber Torbett.
Present.
And then the Churchill, Mount Carmel, Hawkins County rep, looks like Josh Russell is on. Josh? If you're talking, you're muted. It is showing Josh is on, so I'm going to write his name down. And oh, now he's gone, but we have a quorum, so we're good. And Susan said she just got kicked off. Let's see. She said I jinxed her. So hopefully people are not having technical issues. Okay, James, if you want to go to the next.
I've been kicked out, but never kicked off.
All right. So next thing we'll do is public comments on agenda items. So is there any public on, Leslie?
Yes, there are. There are 13 attendees other than the panelists.
Okay. So those wishing to make a comment pertaining to any of the agenda items may do so at this time. There's a 5-minute limitation. And then comments that are not pertaining to specific agenda items will occur at the end of the meeting. So if you don't see it listed there, but you do have a question or comment, you'll hold off till after the meeting. So I'll open it up for anybody that has any comments on agenda items.
Chairman, Josh Russell let us know that he is present, but his mute was giving him problems. I don't know if y'all want him to unmute again for a voice. Go ahead, Josh.
Josh, are you there?
Microphone must not be working.
Yeah.
Still can't hear you, Josh, even when you unmute.
There's 2 phone-in listeners under the attendees also, so that's different than before. But we'll go ahead and count Josh present.
Do you see anybody raising their hand wanting to make any comments?
No, I do not see any hands raised or Q&A or chat.
Okay, well, we'll close that. Next thing we'll do is move on to the approval of the minutes from the December 3rd, 2020 meeting, which seems like about 4 years ago. Do we have if everybody's had a chance to look over the minutes, if there's any comments on those, just feel free to make them, and then I'll open the floor up for either comments or a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes from the December 3rd, 2020 meeting.
That was Jimmy, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
This is Amber Torbett. I'll second the motion.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. If Leslie will call the roll.
Okay, Chairman James Phillips,
Aye.
Jimmy Adkins,
Aye.
Blake Ayler,
Aye.
Chase Milner,
Aye.
Troy Ebert,
Aye.
Amber Torbett,
Aye.
and Josh Russell. Still muted, so Josh, if you can hear me, if you want to put something in, if we can't hear you, if you want to put something in the chat box, that's fine too.
He's texted aye.
Okay.
All right. Next, we've got the election of an executive board, of the vice chair for the board. So I will turn it over to Bill to just go over the bylaws and how we go about doing this, which everyone I think is pretty experienced on.
Yeah, it's just real simple. The chairman is permanent by way of the bylaws. So don't have to reelect the chairman, but the vice chairman is not. It's temporary and it has to be approved or voted upon every year. So I think right now Jimmy's the vice chair, but we do have to take nominations and vote a vice chair for the rest of this year.
Are you all seeing the agenda on the screen? Okay.
And I'm reading the staff request that the board members nominate and elect a vice chair. Just to repeat.
This is Amber. I nominate Jimmy Adkins again to serve as our vice chair, please.
This is Troy. I would second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. So Leslie, I'll let you call the roll there.
Okay. Chairman James Phillips,
Aye.
Jimmy Adkins,
Abstain.
Blake Ayler,
Aye.
Chase Milner,
Aye.
Troy Ebert,
Aye.
okay. Amber Torbett,
Aye.
Josh Russell,
Thank you, guys.
He is aye on Josh.
Speech.
All right. Item number 5 is the Tennessee and Virginia. I guess the MAP 21 requirements. So I'll let Leslie, if you'll talk about those a little bit for TDOT and VDOT.
Okay, so the next 3 items are all requirements of the performance-based planning and programming requirements from MAP 21 and then more recently Fast Act. So any of these items, the next 3 agenda items that you would like more information about, targets, methodology, anything like that, let me know and I can send it. It's just there's some pretty lengthy reports, so I didn't include all of that in here, but anybody that's interested in diving into it deeper, let me know and I can send it. So I tried to streamline. In the past, we've done Tennessee and Virginia separate. So I've tried to streamline the agenda a little bit. And so we're going to do Tennessee and Virginia PM1, which is the safety targets, as one agenda item. So most of you all should be pretty familiar with this. This is something we've had to do every year because the safety targets are annual targets. So state departments of transportation and MPOs had to adopt targets for 5 areas, including number of fatalities, number of serious injuries, rate of fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, rate of serious injuries per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, and number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. So TDOT has updated their safety targets to what you see in this right-hand column. Those are the new statewide targets for TDOT. We have, every year we've had to do this, we have just adopted the state targets. MPOs can choose to create their own targets and adopt those. But these are the statewide targets for Tennessee. And then Virginia does things a little different. They actually set an annual percentage change goal that we would adopt. And then that translates into a numerical target just for our MPO area. So what's on the screen now would be our Virginia targets. So adopting the state percentage targets, but translating it into targets for our MPO area. So if there are any questions on that. I'm not hearing any.
It's a moving average, right, Leslie?
Yeah, they adjust them each year.
Yeah.
To the previous 5 years. James, I think we're good for a motion if nobody has any questions.
Mr. Chairman, this is Jimmy. I'll make a motion to approve the PM1 targets resolution for Tennessee and Virginia as presented.
This is Blake, and I second that motion.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Leslie will call the roll. I was on mute there. I was just talking away. Sorry.
Chairman James Phillips,
Aye.
Jimmy Adkins,
Aye.
Blake Ayler. Blake,
Sorry, it's this mute button. Aye.
Chase Milner,
Aye.
Troy Everett,
Aye.
Amber Torbett,
Aye.
Josh Russell. Michael, did you say something?
Oh, yes, Josh texted aye to that one.
Okay.
All right, motion passes. So you basically covered, well, go ahead, Leslie. This item 6 is PM2 and 3, which you've kind of talked about, but go ahead. I'm sure you've got a chart there.
Yeah, so PM2 and 3, in November 2018, we adopted the 4-year targets. Sorry, my nose is itching. That the Tennessee and Virginia had set. So these are 4-year targets, and they did have the federal regulations allowed the states and MPOs to adjust their initial 4-year targets at the midpoint, so 2 years. So that's where we're at now. So this is PM2 and PM3, which is infrastructure conditions. So that's pavement and bridges, and then system performance. So Tennessee adjusted 2 targets. So what's on the screen now shows the 2-year targets, the initial 4-year targets, and the adjusted targets. So these highlighted in yellow are the only 2 that are relevant to our MPO area that Tennessee adjusted. So they did adjust some of the emissions, peak hour, excessive delay and stuff like that. But since we are in attainment for air quality, we do not have to adopt those. So we're only adopting the ones that are applicable to our MPO area. So that would be the percentage of pavements on the non-interstate NHS in poor condition. They had original set a target of 4%, and that went up to 5%. And then the truck travel time reliability index. So there is a mathematical formula to get to that number that divides the 95th percentile, which is a major delay, divides it by the 50th percentile, which is a normal travel time. The higher the ratio, the worse the reliability. So anything below 1.5 is considered reliable. So TDOT is adjusting theirs from 1.33 to 1.37. So just a small adjustment, still in a good range. Just for reference, I looked up some other information, and like Baltimore, that area, their initial 4-year target was 1.88. So initially, I think there was like a 1.5 was set as a kind of a goal, or anything below that's reliable. So 1.37, even though it's a little bit increased, it's still not bad. On the Virginia side, they are adjusting 1 target, the percentage of NHS bridges classified as in good condition. So it's 30.5%. It was 33%. It's going down to 30.5%. in the packet, I only included the ones that are changing. So what we would be voting on is that we are still supporting the state targets or adopting the state targets, but that would be the unchanged and the changed. So we could go in if we wanted to set our own targets for any of these, we could do that at this point, but I recommend just following the state targets again. I think it's just cleaner that way. It's what most of, at least the Tennessee MPOs are doing, it seems like. So 2 adjustments in Tennessee and 1 in Virginia, but the vote would be to adopt the unchanged and adjusted targets.
Hey, Leslie.
Yeah.
You know, if anybody has established what those percentages would be if it was just Upper East Tennessee in our area?
No, I have shared with Julie Carmian how Virginia does that, because I mean, especially on the safety targets, I like that it's specific to our MPO area.
Mhm.
And so I have shared with her the way Virginia does it, and also the way they did the PM2 and PM3. So here's the Virginia again on your screen. It's just the letter that we would have to send to them saying that we're supporting the adjusted state target and we're not setting a new target for our region.
Yeah, Bill, that makes a good point. The reliability section there.
Yes.
You know, our region is known for very high reliability on that. We have the highest traffic counts in the state in East Tennessee, counting Knoxville, Mike. So that's East Tennessee
I'm
technically.
assuming truck travel time would be lower considering
Yes.
the congested areas of the major cities sitting still on the interstate, as opposed to our area, you never see that.
Right. But we have the highest reliability rates with the highest traffic counts in the same areas that are Knoxville. So, but yeah, everything we do is still on a statewide average.
Bill, this is Sean from FHWA. I'm sorry to interrupt, but the data should be available. I mean, TDOT's looking at it from that statewide level and setting targets to comply with the federal requirements at that statewide level, but they should have the data available to parse it down to y'all's region.
Good.
And that's a good point, Sean. I was just going to add to that with the NPMRDS data that TDOT is making available to the MPOs, the MPO can also work with us to look at the data to come up with their own analysis for the MPO region. And that's a conversation we can definitely engage the MPO if they are interested in doing that. But they do have access to all the data to be able to run and do their own analysis. So.
But it is fair to say that reliability is repeatability, not that it's not bad, it's just consistent.
Correct. It's one of those where, you know, it's going to take you an extra 10 minutes to get to work every day in West Knoxville. And it's about that every single time. It doesn't go up to 40 minutes one day and 20 minutes the next day. But yeah, that's what the reliability is.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean.
James.
Okay, I'm just making sure. We'll open it up for a motion for the approval of PM2 and 3 targets.
This is Chase Milner. I'm happy to make a motion to support PM2 and PM3 adjusted targets as presented.
This is Blake. I second that motion.
Okay, Leslie will call the roll.
Chairman James Phillips.
Aye.
Jimmy Adkins.
Aye.
Blake Ayler.
Aye.
Chase Milner.
Aye.
Troy Ebert.
Aye.
Amber Torbett.
Aye.
And Josh Russell.
Josh, if you don't mind, can you confirm one more time? Is that an aye for this item, number 7?
That's number 6.
I'm sorry. Item number 6, is that, we just have several ayes in there from you, and I'm not sure if you put in a new one or not. Okay, thank you. Yeah, Josh is a aye.
Okay.
All right, motion passes. Item number 7, we've got the transit safety targets, and Leslie also has this presentation.
Okay, so for transit agencies that receive the FTA Section 5307 funds, which is the urbanized formula funds, they are required to develop a public transportation agency safety plan and adopt specific transit safety targets. In our Kingsport MTPO area, we only have 2 agencies. It's CATS, Kingsport Area Transit Service, and NetTrans. There are no public transportation providers in our Virginia area who receive 5307 funds. So these are the targets that the transit providers set. You'll see CATS, their 2019 annual vehicle revenue miles was a little over 331,000 miles. NetTrans pre-COVID, they were doing about 3.3 million miles a year. So CATS and NetTrans targets are showing on the screen. Again, I would suggest just adopting those specific provider targets instead of trying to set a target for the MPO area. There's such a difference in, CATS has 331,000 miles because they only operate inside city limits, whereas NetTrans has 3.3 million over a year. So a vast majority, or a vast difference. And you'll see the system reliability. So the miles between major mechanical failures, CATS targets 22,000 miles, whereas NetTrans is 262,000 miles. So a vast difference. Any discussion on that or any questions?
There is a system that operates in Scott County and just doesn't get those funds, right? I mean, it's
Yes,
Mountain Empire,
MEOC,
MEOC.
they get rural funds.
This is Jimmy. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the transit safety targets as presented.
Second.
Who was that?
I was just saying, do we have a second?
Oh.
That's probably me.
This is Troy Eber from TDOT. I'll make a second.
Okay. Chairman James Phillips,
Aye.
Jimmy Adkins,
Aye.
Blake Ayler,
Aye.
Chase Milner. Chase,
Can you hear me?
yeah. I can.
Sorry.
Okay. Is that an aye, Chase?
Yes, aye, sorry.
Troy Everett,
Aye.
Amber Torbett,
Aye.
and Josh Russell.
He is an aye.
All right, next we've got item number 8, the long-range transportation plan, and Bill and Jim have this presentation.
Okay, thanks, James. We're going to get a progress report from Jim here in just a couple of minutes. Wanted to mention the goals and objectives. We had originally thought about getting that approved today at today's meeting, but we're going to put that off for a little while. We want to include, I mean, the goals and objectives have been established for every long-range plan going way back, and the staff has a lot to do with it, and our consultant. But we want to include the public, their opinions and their comments in setting the goals and objectives. And we are just getting started in AECOM, our consultants, Jim, are just getting started on the public engagement process. So we want to get feedback from the public on the goals and objectives and incorporate that in all the list of those items. I will say that the previous plan, the goals and objectives were quite different one than before that. The previous plan had sustainability, livability and prosperity. Previous plan 10 years ago had, of course, these are really subcategories of those broad-based items I just mentioned, but safety, congestion mitigation, accessibility, multimodal, et cetera. So those are some that have already existed in the past and will probably be carried over, but we wanted to include public comment, public suggestions in setting goals and objectives. So we will not approve those, we won't finalize those, and we won't discuss them in length until the next meeting. So any questions on goals and objectives? Jim Meyer with AECOM and his group have done a great job so far. They've worked on public engagement and worked on the modeling process. And I won't go into details because that's what he's going to do here in just a second. But Jim, you got the floor, so I appreciate you giving us an update on the long range plan.
Sure. Thanks, Bill. As Bill mentioned, we're really kind of kicking off the public engagement piece here. I'm going to show in a few minutes the virtual room that I would say we kind of have done a soft launch on, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. And we're really hoping that you as committee members can help spread the word and really help increase participation. Before I talk about that, let me just briefly update you on some of the technical tasks that we're working on. So we've been coordinating with Bill and the staff on finalizing the socioeconomic data for the LRTP. So this has a horizon year of 2045. So we've been updating our base year, which will be 2018. That's consistent with the statewide model. We'll have a 2030 year forecast, and then we'll have our 2045 year forecast as well. So I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on that, but we're should be finalizing that data very soon, maybe as early as next week. So when we have the population employment being the major items for that forecast, we will then take that information and plug it into our travel demand forecasting model. That will provide us with some level of service or capacity congestion issues. And once we have that information, we want to come back and share that with you as a committee to show you if there's any hotspots or areas of concern. The couple other things that have been going on here primarily over the last month or so, we've had been reaching out primarily to VDOT to get collect some information. They've been very helpful on that. So we have some crash data. We have information from TDOT that we've been able to download here as well. So one of the things that you were just discussing in terms of performance measures, and something we'll do as part of the LRTP update, something we're required to do, is to provide an update on how the MPO is responding to those MPO targets. So that is something that we'll be working on. And one thing that we have discussed internally, and just want to mention, we'll get more information to you, but we would like to conduct a working session with you prior to the May MPO meeting. So that would maybe be a little longer session dedicated just to the LRTP. And so tentatively thinking maybe mid to late March, but we would have some existing conditions results. We would have some of that future year model results information to share with you. And on top of that, we would have results from the initial round of public engagement that we're going to be conducting here. With that, I'll try to share my screen here. Hopefully.
Put a link in the chat box to the virtual room.
You put it in, Leslie?
Yes, I put a link.
Okay, perfect. Great. Can everybody see that okay? Is that sharing? Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. So this is the virtual room that we've developed for for the LRTP. It's going to be one of the primary outreach tools that we have. And we will utilize the this room. It's really kind of a project website in some respects, but the room is set up right now, and I'll just kind of walk you through it. Leslie put the link in there, so when you do have a chance, feel free to go through. But it's a 360-degree room. We've set up a few stations that we're going to plan to add additional information as we have study results. We have a sign up area if people want to sign up for a project newsletter or information. There's a brief overview of the LRTP if that's something they want to look at. We have a project schedule in here kind of showing when the final draft plan coming in August, with the adoption of the plan coming in early 2022. There is a contact space here. If people have questions or comments, they can contact the project team. There is a survey that we have out there right now. And this is a through SurveyMonkey. It's hosted in the website. And so there's just about 8 or 9 questions in there. And to Bill's point, this is it includes some information on all modes, and it includes some questions that are geared around the goals and those areas that Bill talked about. So we really want to get feedback, look at that, the responses that we get, and see if there are any, based on the feedback that we receive, if there's any reason to modify the goals and objectives. There's a little area over here with documents. We'll place documents in here as we develop them for the project. Right now, there's access to the tip. There's the executive summary from the last LRTP, the 2040 plan. So those are available if people want to download those. Just swinging around here, I think that's just a nice view outside the window. And then last but not least, we have this map that sits on the table. If you click on this map, it will pull up a online mapping tool. So you'll see the metropolitan planning area for Kingsport. You can zoom in as close as you want. There's instructions over here on the side. You can drop a pin on the map. Kind of getting blocked out here. You can select a category, and if you wish, you can provide additional details, and you can add that and continue to add issues onto the map. So we'll collect information. People can provide comments on multimodal. So we have driving, bikes, pedestrian, transit, and we have another category if there are development related issues or land use issues there. So this site is going to be, well, the virtual room will be open. The survey and the online mapping are going to be available through Sunday, March 7th. And at that time, we'll close out that piece of the virtual room. We'll analyze the information. And then once we have all of that together with some of the technical analysis that we're going to be doing, we'll come back to you as a committee to hold that workshop. And I'm sure Bill and Leslie will coordinate with you on setting those dates here probably in the next few weeks. So that's all I wanted to share right now. Don't know if anyone has any questions or comments or anything at this point.
Let me mention, Jim, that to reach people so they are aware of the virtual room, because there's different ways of doing that. The old-fashioned way is newspaper. You got Facebook, stuff like that, but we tried something a little bit different this time. We have included a statement in everybody's water and sewer bill with a link to access the virtual room. So about 15,000 water and sewer customers have gotten or will get a statement that's blatantly visible there on the water tube bill, telling them about this and how they can access it. So it actually reaches probably 50,000 people.
Yeah, great point. Thanks, Bill. I forgot to mention that. Also, another thing, Leslie informed me before the meeting that there is a link up on the website. So we would also ask any of the partner agencies to, again, share that link and start posting this. Really as, the success is going to be getting the word out there and getting people to go to the link here, fill out this information. And again, it's the link's in there, but it is kingsport2045lrtp.com. So we will try to spread the word over the next month and get this out. One other final bit of information I'll mention, obviously COVID has created this shift to a virtual environment. Part of our engagement is really going to acknowledges that there's a group of individuals out there who may not have access to online services and everything. So we are going to make an effort to really target some EJ populations and make sure that we're reaching out through this entire process. We're not going to just wait to the end, and identify projects and see what those impacts are. So over the next month or so, we're going to be working with Kingsport staff to identify some groups that we should be reaching out to, and we'll try to reach out to through some stakeholder interviews. We want to factor that input that we receive into the goals and objectives and just our overall technical analysis. So I'll stop there, see if anyone has any questions or comments.
I've got one quick question. The MPO's in the process of developing their bike ped plan at the same time. And this is kind of a, I guess, Bill Leslie question potentially, but how are you all planning on merging your comments from your bike, from your bike ped into your bike ped plan or related with your long range plan?
Yeah, Troy, I can answer that. We've actually have been in coordination with Bill and Leslie to connect with the consultant doing the bike ped plan. We've actually had a call with the consultant to discuss that. And we've talked about sharing not only both ways, sharing our information that we receive for them to incorporate it into their analysis, but also to take their information and incorporate that into our LRTP as well. So we are working closely with them. We've actually we talked a couple weeks ago. We set up another call as a check-in here in a couple weeks to see when we have the results coming out, just to kind of touch base and see if there's opportunities to coordinate on that. One additional area, Troy, that we talked about where we thought we could really provide benefit to them is in the crash analysis. So that's something that we're going to be looking at, the crash data, obviously for performance measures, but we also want to kind of identify hotspots. And so one of the things that we thought would be beneficial to the bike ped planning process would be to share that information so they could incorporate that into any potential improvements that they're looking at. And if if there are bike ped facilities that are falling within a potential hotspot, maybe that's an area that greater focus might be needed to look at ways to mitigate potential crashes or safety concerns.
And there's also the Parks and Recreation Master Plan is underway. And so Drew with Gresham Smith that's working on the bike ped plan has been in touch with those consultants to get information from them regarding especially the green belt and tie-ins and stuff like that. So I'm sure Drew will probably have some of that information next time you talk to him, Jim. And Jim and I had talked before this meeting about sending this link out via email, probably to our email distribution list. So you all will probably get this link again next week sometime, and feel free to forward it to whoever you think may want to provide some feedback.
The bike ped plan does, by the way, does not include transit. So I've seen some plans that do. This one does not. So transit plan is entirely within the long range plan.
Yeah, one other point I'll make, and this is some conversations I think we've had internally, Bill. We've talked about this, and you know, a lot of times in a MPO this size, you know, there may not be those major capacity traffic congestion issues, and so one opportunity we've talked about is, you know, can we target more lower cost safety improvements potentially, and try to identify some hotspot areas that would be a focus for some lower cost improvements. You know, so trying to again address that safety concern and that focus in on those safety targets that you discussed earlier, and making positive improvements towards reaching those goals.
We also, really up front, when we first started, mentioned to Jim and his staff that we wanted an emphasis on economic development, economic growth. Kingsport's sort of been in a stagnant mode for a while. We've downsized a lot of industry, lost a lot of jobs. And so somehow, some way, we know that the transportation system can enhance the attraction of commerce, you know, wherever it comes from. And that's an emphasis here that I wanted to mention.
Yeah, Jim, wanted to make sure that you all knew, and I'm sure you do, that TDOT has completed their I-8140 study, which also includes a couple in the I-26 study, and that will include several things, projects we've identified already that are in this MPO area. So if you need any of that, let me know, but it's all on our website as well.
Yep. Thanks, Troy. One other thing I did mention, you know, we had contacted VDOT. We have set up a meeting in a couple of weeks to talk about some of the transportation issues, priorities on the Virginia side. So that's something as well that we'll be discussing there. So any other questions?
Okay, thank you all very much for the presentation. We'll jump over to ninth thing on the list, which is we're going to do project updates and state and federal partner updates. So turn over to, I guess, Michael or Leslie, whoever wants to dole it out here.
I believe we're going to start with Matt Meservey on the TDOT side. If you can unmute, sir.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you all for inviting me to this grand gathering. Appreciate it. I think KB and I are going to tag team a little bit on this since we're both on here. I will start off with the urban transportation planning grants. As you know, the Kingsport area had applied for this grant, and there was one of one that was received. So congratulations, you will be awarded for the Center Street corridor study. And
great news.
Yeah, we do want to talk a little bit about the scope. So I'll give you a little bit of the process, but the official response will be coming out tomorrow. And because you were the loan recipient or the loan applicant that received the awards, the competition wasn't as great as others. For example, we had 8 applications from Nashville.
Wow.
And it's been a little more difficult to break those into one. We did receive applications from 10 of the 11 MPOs or the urban areas. Bristol was the loan entity that did not apply. However, that doesn't really apply to you all, but The intent is to release the RFPs for our on-call consultants to help you with this. And once selected, we will sit down with you all to create a scope that has a little more multimodalism to it. So the fact that you were, again, the only applicant in Kingsport, we feel like we can help hone this in a little bit more and make it a little stronger. So that's all I wanted to say on that. I'm going to hand it over to KB. I know we want to talk a little bit about some of the COVID relief items on that.
Thank you, sir. So I wanted to update you all that there's a letter in the works coming very soon to the MPO. As you know, the state federal appropriation, we extended the COVID Act 2021, extended funding for FAST Act. And in addition to that, we were also giving COVID relief funding to provide support for transportation delivery in the state. And the larger 4 MPOs were about 200,000, which is the 4 we have in Tennessee: Chattanooga, Knoxville, Memphis, and Nashville were identified for specific funding. But the MPOs with population 50,000 and above, but below 200,000, were not specifically identified. But leadership have had conversations and decided to allocate some of that funding to each of the smaller MPOs to facilitate transportation project delivery. And those funding will be subject to the same rules and regulations subject to SCDG funds. More details will come to you all with a letter that leadership working on. So I wanted to let you know to watch out for the letter, and we'll be happy to talk through it when you receive it if any additional questions come up. But this is just to let you know that we are working on it and it should be coming out pretty soon. Thank you.
Yeah, and as far as like KB was saying, the guidance on there has been fairly scarce right now, and I know that our Nashville call yesterday, Sean had provided a couple links, so I might be stealing his thunder, but I think he can, if he could provide you with those same links, it might help answer some of those questions that you might have off the top of your head. I think that's it for us.
Good, Michael. Eric Wilson's on the line with us to provide some updates as well from our region project development.
That's right. Yes, I promoted Eric up. So yes, if you will go on and you're ready, Eric.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to speak here. I'm just going to give you an update on the projects that y'all have listed on the screen here. I just want to say that we're finally starting to see some movement in the projects in this area. I think next time we meet, probably in the summer, we'll have our 3-year plan release for fiscal year 2022, and not ready to be released yet, but I think you'll see some of these projects moving forward. So we'll keep fingers crossed on that. But just to give you an update where we're at today, first project, State Route 126 Memorial Boulevard to phase 1. That goes from Center Street to just east of Cooks Valley Road intersection. You've heard this before. We're in the right-of-way acquisition phase. So still making really good progress now. I think we're over halfway through. There's over 200 tracks, so quite an undertaking. But we are moving through. Like our projects go with the next phase construction, it'll have to show up in the 3-year plan. If it would be funded, it would be ready for fiscal year 2023. So maybe after the spring, after the release, we'll get an idea if we're on track for that. It'll still take us another year plus to finish all the acquisitions. The phase 2, which continues that project, the widening all the way to I-26. It is in the preliminary engineering phase. We have started design. We've been working on it for a few months now. We're getting to a milestone where we start presenting the plans to internal groups with TDOT, which is really the first step to getting it prepared for a design meeting. And that'll be pretty much the next thing for you all to look for would be a public meeting on this, which could happen as early as late this year, but more than likely it'll be early 2022. And Since this is going to be another such a long project, it'll likely impact several properties. You're probably still looking at 2025, around that range for a construction year for that one. Washington Sullivan, State Route 36. This one is also in the preliminary engineering phase. We are actually doing the survey now on this one. That is anticipated to last through the summer, and then we'll start design activities. Right now, we're looking at a project of this scope taking about 4 years for development. Typically, once we start design, it takes about 12 months to get plans ready for design meetings. So you could be looking at sometime late next year for design meeting, 2022. Probably more like a 2026 year for construction to start. But again, we have to fund each phase in each 3-year plan, so that will have to be funded for both right-of-way and construction. Same with that 126 phase 2. State Route 347, Rock Springs Road. This is one that I know some of you are familiar with. We've last year we were finally able to get everything on page with separating the project partly for a widening the existing road and then also a greenway project that'll be separated into as an MPO project. So we're proceeding with the roadway plans itself. And we're looking at having a design meeting this year to probably be more in the fall, but we will have a more for the engineering side. We will have a preliminary field review. Just it's been so long since the last one this summer, so we'll have more information at that time for this one. And then if we could just get some coordination with the Greenway project, just to make sure we include that as we move along together and make sure we're clear what we're going to do to the public. So we have 3 sections there showing up for State Route 93. I believe Mike or Jason with operations are going to share the first section, which is what we call the Fall Branch section, which is entirely in Washington County because that one is under construction. But I'll discuss the other 2 sections, the Sullivan, Washington 93 section, which we call the Rock Bluff section. This is from Morgan Lane to near Bailington Road. This project is wrapping up. We've completed right-of-way. We're doing some of the other internal stuff like permits, environmental permits, getting everything finalized. There's a very good chance this will let this fall. This is something that I hope to have more information on if you around the spring when we start working through our financial plans for this coming year. But this is being talked about being expedited. Right now, it's currently planned to let this fall. I would think that's a very good chance. It still officially has not been funded. It is in that fiscal year 22, which means we could let it in December if that's the case. But it's possible it can move up. But that'll be a to be continued kind of deal there. The third section takes place completely in Sullivan County. We call this the industrial section. This is in that industrial park. It is from Horse Creek to near Derby Drive. This one we're wrapping up right-of-way acquisition on. It has not been recognized or identified in a 3-year plan yet, but once again, this is another section that could be moved up because right now it's with it not being funded, we don't really have a dedicated year for construction, but stay tuned in spring. We may be able to give you an exact grading date on this one. With the amount of work we have to do, we still have some permits that we have to apply for, environmental stuff to look at, and it would probably be more like a spring. It would be the earliest if we had funding. That would be the earliest we could let it of next year. But that project had previously not been in the 3-year plan, and we may be able to move that up and set a date for it. The I-81 ITS expansion, that is actually a project being handled out of Nashville, out of our ITS office. It seems to be staying on schedule. It's been shown as a fiscal year 2023 project. I checked, it's still there. I think they're just going through the product development process for that. That'll extend our I'm not sure what all. I'm assuming it may apply some message boards and stuff like that, kind of expanding our system on I-81 towards the Virginia state line. If y'all have any specific questions like that, I'll be happy to reach out to our ITS office to get you some updates on that. The last two projects, I'll cover Fort Robinson Drive, and then Memorial Boulevard will be, it's another project in construction. So they'll, either Mike or Jason will talk about that. But Fort Robinson Drive, sorry, got tongue-tied. Fort Robinson Bridge over Dry Creek. This has been one that we've, it's a difficult little bridge. It's got a really deep channel in it, and it's got some complicated right-of-way issues with some houses that are right up against the bridge. It's got a private retaining wall that's actually connected to the bridge. So we've been really hammering down with our geotech and our structures office to try to get this one to right-of-way, and we're finally getting there. Right now, I anticipate right-of-way starting this spring and construction next winter or next spring 2022. So hopefully we have one of these in spring or summer. I'm really going to be able to give you some updates because there's a lot of stuff happening in the spring this year for these projects. Any questions on those projects I covered?
Hey, Eric, on Rock Springs Road, when will property owners be contacted for any design meetings or anything? I guess they'll be included in those design meetings, wouldn't they?
Yeah, this one started out, as you know, as a pretty major study area. So it got some heat on it when some letters got sent out to property owners about their property going to be taken. So it's not going to have any, we're not anticipating any relocations now. So, but we still want to have a design meeting because it was so publicly, it got so out there that people are so aware of it that we still want to go through. We normally don't do public meetings if there are no relocations. So with that, with knowing that, we want to go ahead and proceed with that. And right now, I would say we would likely have this in the fall. It'd be later in the fall, more like if we can get it before December. If we have a kind of a cutoff point, we can't do it too late in December. We have to wait till the next year. But roughly about 1 month before the meeting is when we'll send out public notices.
Okay. I had a property owner contact me, and they look to be one of the, I don't know if you're familiar with how it lays out there, but one of the houses that has a steeper driveway coming down to Rock Springs Road. So, but they were apparently one of them that was contacted in the past. So they've contacted me, and I just told them they were going to try to attend today if there was going to be much information. And I told them I didn't expect really anything different from the last meeting, but that I would update them after this meeting. So. Yeah, I would say the next date for them will be fall. Okay. And we'll have one of these before, probably 2 or 3 of these before then. Okay. And we'll keep updating you on that. But if they have immediate questions, you can give them my contact at eric.wilson@tn.gov. Okay.
And I can get you his phone number too if you need to get a hold of him, Melissa. That's not a problem.
I was going to say, if there was no more questions for Eric, I believe, Troy, you're going to cover the construction updates.
Yep. Jason.
One question. And if you'll promote Randy Bustler in case he has any paving updates, he's on there too.
Here's another question.
Bill?
Just on 126, just clarification, because I was getting mixed up with phase 2. What is the anticipated date to begin construction on phase 1?
Phase 1 does not have a funding year yet. Once it's in year 1 plan, it's officially funded. We can have it ready if with the amount of rock we have left. The earliest that we can let it would be 2023.
Okay.
So if it were to show up in the 3-year plan, we'll be ready to go.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go ahead with the construction updates. Our District 17 leadership, they've not been able to attend. They got called in to meet with Amanda Snowden out of the regional office, probably following up on all the snow events and everything that we've had here recently. So I'll give you 3 updates. I'm going to put them in the chat box as well. So basically for State Route 93, that section there by the fire hall, the contractor is planning on placing concrete barriers along the new alignment of Crestview Drive to move traffic while the old alignment is being removed and the new lane on State Route 93 is actually being constructed. Still have some utilities we need to move. After these areas are complete, curb and gutter will be placed along the temporary roadway and then paved. After temporary striping, all barriers will be reset to protect the next phase of construction. Traffic will be shifted to the temporary location. As far as the time on that, I don't have anything specific on when these will happen, but that's what's coming up next. Memorial Boulevard, Fort Henry Drive. This section, the project let to construction and pre-construction meetings have already been held. Special provision to the plans allow for 90 days to complete the project once the contractor starts. So once all his materials they're all being ordered and scheduled for delivery before signs are placed and construction begins. Contractor plans start on this May 2021, but there's not been a definitive date. Hawkins County with Independence and Hammond let to construction, but pre-construction has not been held yet. So that one is upcoming. So watch for pre-construction meetings on those. Those were the updates from Jason and Michael Dick for the District 17. The only thing that I'll add in here, because we're getting lengthy on the meeting, is resurfacing letters. Last year, we sent 1 year's worth of letters out. You received those, would have come from Rhonda from OCT. This year, we were going to be sending out all 3 years of the list. The advantage to that is that gives you all, and this is for anyone who has a project that is resurfacing that will be occurring. So it could go to any of the mayors. We always address the county mayors and the local mayors. And of course, we always will hit the utilities and the public works directors on that. So if you get it and you're not sure what to do with it as the mayors, make sure your public works folks get a hold of that as well, and the utilities. We're going to send out 3 years worth. What that does is that gives you a chance to look at your capital projects coming, saying, hey, I've got a water line I'm getting ready to put in here, or sewer improvements that's going to conflict with this. So what we will do, and Randy is the master coordinator on all this, make sure Randy knows so he can back that plan off just a little bit, move some stuff around so you all can get all the ingredients in the cake baked, and then we can come back and put the final bit of icing on it, the sprinkles, because if we're going to get complaints, it's going to be on those lines that we put on the roadway at the end. So we don't want to have to come back, or we don't want to have a brand new paved road that's just been completed and then have it be cut up because we didn't have coordination. The other thing that does, and this goes in with your bike ped plan and your long range planning stuff, is if there is a road that we're currently working on resurfacing and that we have the ability to add in, say, multimodal improvements, whether it's a bike lane, crosswalk enhancements, that sort of things. Road diets, y'all are kind of familiar with the road diet, I think. We have that option at this point. We can start moving forward. Now, road diets are a little bit different. Well, they're basically going to be the same as what you all did it last time on Center Street, but we have a new committee to go through to make sure that passes. But it's very similar to what you all did before. Past that, those are the big updates that we have right now from TDOT long range planning. Any questions?
Randy Bustler, do you have any resurfacing updates?
Nothing more than I think I told you in the last meeting. Of course, John B. Dennis is supposed to be let tomorrow. It's supposed to be in the February letting, so should have that under contract here in the next few weeks. And the I-26 section from the Welcome Center out to the Washington County line, that one was let in December, and it's under contract. So that's about all I've got. If anybody's got any questions, just reach out to me anytime.
Michael, do you have anything for local projects?
Randy, outside of those, Industry Drive is the only other one that was let last year that's just waiting for the weather to break to get started. Is that correct? I think they put a May completion on that job, so they should be back in there as soon as the weather warms up and we get into paving season. We should be in there doing that work. Well, that works good. We got our work done, our curb line work done, so we're out of your way now.
Good deal.
So just a couple of project updates for the non-TDOT managed projects. The West End Greenbelt, we are still in NEPA. We have submitted to TDOT our cultural resources letters, and that was submitted the 1st of this January, and we're waiting for SHPO and the North American, the Native American Council approvals on those concurrences, and then we can submit our categorical exclusion document on that one. The Stone Drive sidewalks, phase 1 and 2 were bracketed together and are under construction. The western phase from Bloomingdale Pike to Stonebrook Place is largely complete, with just punch list items remaining as they work their way east into the other project. And we're about Motos is about where we're at now, if y'all are familiar with the area. So Main Street, we are ready to submit final construction plans on that one. There are a few issues that are going on concurrently there because of the age of the NEPA document. That is being updated, as well as some new information since that is requiring some additional reports to be done on that. Our Board of Mayor and Aldermen just approved the contract amendment to the consultant to do those extra resources, but our understanding is timeline, that'll all line up. So we expect construction summer of this year on Main Street. Island Road is a little bit earlier in the process on NEPA. So we are, it's a couple years out from construction at this point. The resurfacing project, which is major roads that are functionally classified, that is, we just received our NEPA document back on that. I'm sorry, we received our SHPO and Native American concurrence, and we've submitted the NEPA document on that one. So NEPA is what we've been spending a lot of time in on a lot of these projects right now. So that's all the updates I have, unless there's questions for me.
And you all may have noticed our project list looks a little bit different, because previously we had planned projects. I mean, so I removed any of those that are not actually in development. So these are just projects that are actually ongoing. And so Blake, do you want to talk about why we removed the Virginia projects totally?
Yeah, and Leslie, I got to change to that. Unfortunately, we do have a smart scale project that started construction probably a month and a half ago in Gate City. And it, as funny as this is, it is probably named identical to the US 23 access management project we took off that was planned. The planned project that we had was from the state line to Weber City, and it was an intense access management project. That project was funded through HSIP, but unfortunately the state has taken a different path on what projects they're going to fund with HSIP money. And that project money was taken from it. So it got took off the list. But the project we have under construction, it's US 23 access management and park and ride lot. And that is just as soon as you go under the train trestles, there will be an access management project on that side that will close some access points within the median. We'll have some turn lane improvements, some ditch and shoulder improvements, and then a park and ride lot at Filter Plant Road. So a pretty neat project. So that kind of helps straighten those up.
So the park and ride is on the southbound?
One more time, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Park and ride lots on the southbound of 20.
Park and ride lots on the northbound.
Northbound. Okay.
And then Leslie, at some point, it's not a project update. I did have a few things to go over. I don't know if the best time is now or later.
I say go ahead.
All right. Well, for the people that's on here that was at Bristol's MPO meeting earlier, I apologize because you're getting ready to hear the same thing again. Three things for this MPO. One thing is our smart scale results have been announced officially. And that is, I will say you could see change in that. So that is what's called the recommended staff funding scenario. And for those that aren't aware of what smart scale is, that is the way that we primarily fund our roadway projects within the Commonwealth of Virginia. Now, in the past, typically what we have seen is that the Bristol district receives roughly $22 million. There has been some supplemental district grant funds that have come about through some special legislation that looks like will, obviously it has increased it this round and will continue to increase it as the years go on. So our total this round was $72.9 million, which is the most we have ever received. With that being said, we were extremely fortunate this round that our localities put in some great projects. We had 14 projects funded through our district grant pot, which is only money that is eligible for just the Bristol district. That totaled in $62.2 million with $10.7 million remaining. That remaining funds will be used by our CTB member. However, it is to that member's discretion, and I would use that lightly, as to what they want to do with that money. Typically within our district, they go down the list and fund the next project or projects in line. That is obviously under 10.7 million because you can't use more than you have until they run out. If that scenario happens, our total of 15 total projects will go to 17. We would add 2 more projects, which would be half of the projects that were put in this round of 34. So that's actually pretty good. The second bucket of money that Smart Scale has is what's called high priority funds. This money is divvied out in 2 separate ways. The first time it's divvied out is that any project that is skipped in the district grant pot that is not available for district grant pot funds, but is available for high priority, they come back out in the second step and fund those with high priority funds. We had 1 project hitting that for the first time ever in the history of Smart Scale, and that was a project that totaled $16.8 million. So overall, we did very well. The localities did very well this round of Smart Scale. We have already started to turn our attention to the next round of Smart Scale. And we have reached out to all of our localities for, kind of a postmortem, if you will, of how staff helped with Smart Scale, how that assistance worked, how does the portal work. It's a full Q&A of how everyone feels about Smart Scale, and we're going to be having that at a later date. We have emailed all of our localities to send us in their comments. Now, I will say we have only heard back from 4 localities, so hopefully we get some more comments. Unfortunately, within the Kingsport MTPO boundary, we did not have any projects that were funded. There were 2 that were submitted. Neither one of those were selected for funding. Hopefully going forward, Scott County, we can continue to work with them and hopefully get something in next round that is successful. Now, I have 2 more things to go over that's not Smart Scale related, but this is a good point to ask. Does anyone have any Smart Scale questions at all? Crickets. You love to hear it. Okay. If anybody has any questions, you're more than welcome to call me, email me, call me offline. Don't care a bit. Be happy to go through it with you and go over it with you. The 2 other things really quickly. I've talked with Leslie a little bit and with Rex at the Bristol MPO. There is a memorandum of agreement for TIP action between Kingsport and Bristol's MPOs and TDOT, and all parties have signed that. And it's a fantastic document. Again, I bragged on TDOT in Bristol. I'm going to brag on TDOT in Kingsport here. It is a fantastic document, and really the way you want to outline certain items that will be taken action with at your MPO. With that being said, I did share that document with higher ups at VDOT. And VDOT has always taken the path I think people have seen in the past that they will not give out any advice that could ever even be looked at as legal guidance for an MPO, because they feel they cannot do that and they will not do that. They deemed that document to be that. and that they deemed that the federal guidelines for a tip action were enough, and that they have a tip guidance document out there, and all it does is reiterate the federal guidelines. It does not expand upon that. So they felt that was enough and it's adequate. They did say, and when we did talk, we did have a good conversation, that if the MPOs wanted to create some sort of policy or guidance for tip actions within their policies and procedures, this would probably only be for Virginia items. Then as long as the MPO knew that what they put in there was sound and that it met the federal guidelines for tip action and that their legal authority was okay with it, then there was no problem to do that. I've talked to Rex, I've talked to Leslie a little bit, and it's something I support. We don't certainly have to do it, but I would be more than happy to help in that effort if that's something we wanted to do. I love the language in TDOT's enough to where it would almost be, the greatest form of flattery is plagiarism. It would almost be take what they have, because it is actually really well. There's a lot of gray area in the federal guidelines, and I would anticipate that's why TDOT put that out there, because there's too much gray area. They're good, but you do start to question yourself sometimes when you go to make those actions. And we group everything in Virginia, as everyone knows. So most of those can be staff actions, but sometimes we don't feel comfortable with it being a staff action. So we'll take it in as an actual amendment at the board. And as we know, that can hold projects up if possible, and that's not what we want. So anyways, quick spill on that. If it's something we want to do, great. If not, then that is fine as well. And we'll keep on keeping on as we have been. The other thing, and the presentation for the LRTP update was fantastic earlier. I will say that VDOT does have MetroQuest now available for all MPOs to utilize. As we all may or may not know, MetroQuest is a transportation planning survey tool. It is extremely awesome. I think I've used it for numerous studies myself. If that is something the MTPO would like to utilize or use, please let me know. I will caveat that with I am doing further research. Right now, it has been said they do not know if that tool could be used for anything that involves Tennessee. I shake my head when I hear that because that's not appropriate. It's the MPO has the ability, they should be able to use it for the MPO, especially for the LRTP update if the consultants thought it would be something worthwhile to use and utilize, because it is it was made for transportation planning. That was the only reason MetroQuest was created. So it has built itself around that, and it actually has a model and a template for an LRTP update, multiples actually. So I'm still digging and pressing, and I'm hopeful I get an answer that you all have free range to use that software as you see fit, and that should be the answer. So I'm trying to get my friends in Nova to help back me on that because they have more muscle than I do. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But just a quick update there on a couple of things. If anybody has any questions, just let me know.
Thank you, Blake. Is there anything else from TDOT before we move on to federal? Nope. Okay, Sean.
Yeah, hey Leslie, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to give an update. I'll try to be relatively quick with, I know we're coming up on time. This is Sean Santaya from the FHWA Tennessee Division. Just a few items about the new administration. Secretary Pete Buttigieg has been confirmed by the Senate. His first day was yesterday. FHWA and USDOT are continuing to fill positions, leadership positions. The latest has been FHWA has a new deputy administrator. That's our second in command for our agency. And that is Stephanie Pollock. She was previously the CEO over the Massachusetts DOT. So it'll be interesting to have someone with that actual state DOT experience in that position. I'm looking forward to it. KB and Matt already largely alluded to the funding, but earlier in the chat pod there, I did put the link to two recent apportionment notices issued by FHWA. The first one is about the coronavirus response and relief funding. And that was about $10 billion nationally that was allocated for transportation infrastructure. Of that, about $209 million is going to Tennessee. And as KB and Matt alluded to, there are within that pot, there is going to be set asides for the urban areas. And that funding is going to be available for STBG flexibilities, electric vehicle charging infrastructure, and even a portion of it is going to be additional flexibility to recoup revenue losses as a result of the pandemic. So it can be used for employee salaries, preventative maintenance, and other activities that normally would not be eligible for federal participation. And additional unique kind of tie to that money is it can be obligated up to 100% federal share, which is, you know, also not a common occurrence. So we're anticipating further guidance on the use of that since it is so flexible and different in nature. So we'll share anything that we receive. But again, the link to that apportionment notice is in the chat pod. And then in addition to the coronavirus relief funding, the latest Appropriations Act did also allocate an additional $2 billion nationally for the fiscal year 2021 highway infrastructure program. Of that, 29.6 million is going to Tennessee, and that is, as in previous years versions of the highway infrastructure program, it's going to be STBG eligibilities, electric vehicle charging infrastructure, bridge rehabilitation, and Appalachian development activities. And that funding is an 80-20 federal share. And again, there is a set aside for the urban areas within that funding. Those are really the only updates. I just wanted to thank you guys for, you know, going through the target setting process. The performance measures are a federal requirement, and I know it seems like a lot, and it's you know, very technical in nature. So really appreciate you guys giving that the time and consideration that it deserves. The long range plan update is awesome. We are, you know, always here to assist at FHWA. Would love to participate in the working group that was discussed previously. I'm going to hang on to that link for that virtual room because that is pretty neat. But that's all I've got. I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has for FHWA.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
Is there any other updates before we go on to the public comments? Okay, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we'll do the public comments. Just as a reminder, members of the public can address the executive board with issues related to the region's transportation system. There is a 5-minute limit per individual and or the topic. And I'll open this up. I wanted to make a comment real quick while people are getting their hands up or getting their questions ready. I was on a call this morning with our state reps for this area, and it was a really good call. But I was surprised to hear, I think multiple of the reps mentioned resurfacing as a focus in there, and how it shifted in the last few years from, you know, new to building new roads to more resurfacing. So I thought that was interesting, especially then to knowing that I was jumping on MPO a little bit later, and then to hear that mentioned a few times here today. So, you know, I think if you feel like that's the right path, you know, just might want to let your reps know, or when you see them, or when you see anybody in Nashville, because that's definitely the path that our local state reps that we're talking about was going towards, you know, putting quite a few funds towards resurfacing. So I thought that was interesting. But that'll be my only comment, and then I'll just open it up. Leslie, Michael, does anybody have any questions or comments from the public?
I'm not seeing anything yet. If anybody has anything, raise your hand, put it in the Q&A box or chat box.
Going once, going twice.
Nope.
All right, I will take motions to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
This is Blake. I'll second that motion.
And I'm not going to worry about the roll call, so for adjourning.
All right, well, thank you everybody for the reports, and we'll see you next quarter.
Thank you, guys.
What was that, Jimmy?
Thank you, James.
Thank y'all.
You guys.
Leslie, Bill, will you guys send me the announcement that you said went in the sewer and water bills? That's pretty neat.
Yeah, we can.
And actually, I was going to show you. I didn't show it yet, but I was going to. I pulled up my water bill, or I should. I'm sorry, our utility bill.
Trash.
And here, well, if I can get all this to close out, is this is a printout of my bill, and then down here we just added this verbiage to it. So basically, we have the ability to add that much text, and we always use this one to get people to try to sign up for online statements, and we can add something small like that.
Michael, do you want to stop the recording?
Sure.
This did not cost anything either to put that in those water bills. They did have an insert, like the little